Hey, all you happy lost souls. How are you all doing? There's some Father's Day merchandise. There's a G Dope Greatest Dad of All Time shirt featuring a custom made print on the back of the shirt that I created using images of my dad's motorcycle and whatnot. Anyways, the Happy Lost Souls websites and YouTube channel starting to grow. YouTube channel mainly, and I would direct you over to the shop. The link is going to be down in the description. Any kind of purchase or merchandise helps the channel a lot, and a percentage of it goes to helping the water get clean. I'm really into trying to clean up the water because we all drink water. We all need water. It's the lifeblood of everything, of humanity, of life, period. And we only have the water that we have, so it gets recycled over and over again. We got to keep it clean for future generations. It's super important. Today's video, though, now that I got the formalities out of the way, I get a lot of comments about my filming being erratic and all over the place, but people love the content. I do apologize. I suck at filming. I'm looking into getting a gimbal and a GoPro. Getting some better equipment for stability purposes. We try to be more conscientious when I'm filming to keep the camera as still as possible and to actually zoom in on the stuff that I'm talking about when I'm talking about it. For today's discussion, it's going to be kind of more on the anthropological side with these artifacts. If you're new to Happy Lost Souls, the channel is just original music and this massive research project about this ancient culture before the Younger Dryas, probably about 17 to 23,000 BCE, probably 19 to 25,000 years ago in our time. Some group hunting seals because the artifacts are very Solutrean in design. At some point, they made it over here following the ice sheets and hunting seals. And I want to go through a couple of their artifacts and a couple things that might root into their belief system a little bit. Whenever we talk about ancient spirituality or ancient belief systems, they're all guesses. They're always just guesses. It would be the same if a church burned down, right? And 2,000 years later, 3,000 years later, some future archaeologist comes by and finds a cross with a little man on it in a burnt out ruin. Not going to know what that means. They can guess about the spiritual significance of it. They, without written documents saying, oh, that's Jesus Christ on a cross, he's the martyr for Christianity, blah, 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 without all the corresponding written history, all of those would just be guesses. And that's what we're left with in any kind of prehistoric circumstance, because prehistory means pre-writing. So we don't really have any prehistoric context to base any of this stuff on. So what you have to do is you have to go by something called efficacy, especially when you're finding the stuff not in situ. Because of legality and because of certain reasons, like 100% of these artifacts are coming from alluvial deposits, so creek deposits without digging, surface finds, in tidal streams, places you're allowed to look. Sometimes you still need permission for mineral rights and things like that, but I don't sell any of these artifacts. This is all to try to put this story and this mystery together. But one of these patterns I find in the United States, and all these artifacts come from the Pennypack, the Neshaminy, and the Wissahickon creeks. And in every case, at a natural spring in the creek, or a quarry site, or a natural crossing point, a place of importance to ancient humans, you find cached these pairs of artifacts that match, that don't have a lot of utilitarian purpose. They look more ornate, more ornamental, and they're left in matching pairs or triplets usually. For instance, I'll go through a couple of these. You have this beautiful kelp. You see the notching, and this would have slid in. This would have been a composite tool of some sort. Would have had a handle. But it's this striped serpentine, and we got this rhodotite, I believe this is called, or it's a type of sedimentary stone that has a lot of metal content in it. It could even be a petrified wood of some sort because of this amazing striping in it. But these are left together. You got a mace head and a celt. 3 groups of artifacts are left together. You've got this crazy triangular cutting tool of some sort that's slightly fluted. It's got rust in the flute, almost like the attachment had metal. Another Solutrean style saw blade, flat in the back, angular, and it's even cored out right there for some kind of attached shaft. And then this crazy magnetite hammerhead, which for the longest time I thought might be meteoritic. Could still be. This might actually be carbonanite diamond. I'm not really positive. It's slightly magnetic. It's harder than magnetite. That's what throws me off, but it fails the streak test. So I don't know if it's meteoritic at all. Anyway, similar exact materials made by the same hand or with the same idea left deposited. You got like this side profile, an echoglite of like a bear's head, and then it was deposited alongside another artifact made of the same material, echoglite, probably made by the same hand, of either a snapping turtle or some kind of bird head type effigy right here. Another matching set. You got this celt, and you can still see the red pigment on it from the hematite staining on both sides. It's got black, red, white, black, red, white, colors of war. And it was left with this celt here that has the same coloration on it. You can even see where the latching or the strap or the sinew went around, because that attachment got in the way of the pigment, leaving like a white stain there. But this is probably a whiter, lighter material. And it's some kind of crazy quartzite type material. These artifacts are made out of some kind of granite with metals and other silicates bullet mixed all in. It's extremely hard, durable material. Got another set. You got this crazy celt with this green and yellow serpentine layer, with this thumb or this planing tool made of the same rough material. And all of these materials would be very good at abrasion, at cutting or smoothing out other hard things, other stones. Another set, celt, pick of some sort. This set was found in the Wissahickon, this huge hammer made of schist, this little silver triangular plume. This little gouge for sharpening, and this huge shaped celt, also made out of the Wissahickon schist, all found together in a pair. Now this little effigy, which is found in a slightly different location, this is found in the Wissahickon, this giant hammer. But this little effigy of a warhammer or tomahawk, black on one side, or dark blue, and yellow sapphire on the other, exactly matches the larger tool here. So, and this time, this layer, these people that were using and making this stuff, they were in all 3 creeks. They were in the Neshaminy, the Wissahickon, and the Pennypack. And the reason I can tell you that for certainty is because of these tools right here. These are all from the Neshaminy. And you can tell that these tools are just different in design. You can still see the scarring from the rope that went around this goose head effigy pick. I call it the ice cream cone. You see that shine, that artifact patina from being used, but these are all extremely Solutrean in style. I call this the surgeon's kit. I found these stylus-like tools, hand tools, probes of some sort. It almost look like a surgeon's tool kit. I'm not saying that's exactly what they're for. You got this little tiny hammer. The other thing that this whole kit could have been used for is body art or tattooing. A lot of the tools look very reminiscent to early tattoo or inking kits. It could have been also for the production of clothing. We know that this is these people were living during the last ice age, and they were using thick hides either to make boats and to dress with, mostly seal hides. But at the same time period, there were mammoths, timber rhinos, deer, giant armadillo. There's all kinds of huge megafauna prior to the megafauna going extinct. And in the Neshaminy, a lot of these sites were fishing sites along the creek, or you find some weights, some artifacts with holes in them, which I always like to keep. I mean, look how smooth the sharpening tool is. But this stuff's really incredible because it's like surgical quality. It's curved out. It's agronomically shaped for the hand. It's all heat treated. Stuff's like harder than glass. But you see these extremely well crafted pen-like tools or stylus-like tools for doing very detailed work of some sort, whether it be sewing, tattoo creation, or Stone Age surgery of some sort. You know, if it was medical, I'm not positive, but most likely it was either for producing hides, producing clothing, or for boat making. So more Solutrean style, and especially the tips. You see this very diamond-like tip, and then you've only got the actual halving on one side, so it's only been unifacially flaked. So flaked on one side, left the same on the other, and then edge worked for sharpness. This is getting a little bit later as it starts flattening off at the bottom. This is like your proto stem before stem arrowheads started coming into existence. But again, these are very identical to Solutrean style tools. And mostly every one of these creek systems, they lead to the river, and then the river leads to the ocean. They're all tidal. The Pennypack goes to the Delaware, the Neshaminy goes to the Delaware, and the Wissahickon comes out of the Schuylkill, goes back into the Schuylkill, then the Schuylkill goes into the Delaware. And these Solutrean tools can be like saw shaped, like this, be a saw and a poker. This is made out of aluminum oxide or sapphire. This group was using gemstones and making tools out of them, like this massive saw made out of yellow corundum or sapphire. I've got plenty of videos explaining how to identify rough rubies, sapphires, and gemstones. You can take a peek through my channel for tips on that stuff. But this is a yellow sapphire pick or hammer that was composite, so this is into a shaft. They were making these drill bits out of them, out of the corundum. And remember, this corundum material is the second hardest material on Earth under diamond, but it's more robust than diamond, so it won't chip or wear away as quickly as a diamond. That's why they use this material to polish stone, to cut other diamonds, to cut other really hard stones. Next time you look at any of the cutting wheels or sandpaper at your hardware store for rock cutting and for masonry, 9 out of 10 times it's a aluminum oxide of some sort. And that's how they were working with this. This stuff is too hard to fracture. You can't fracture, use percussion methods in order to shape these tools. It just won't work. The thing that you hit it with will end up breaking, not the actual thing that you want to break. The stuff's too hard. So they developed methods using tools like this. This is a palm sander. Got the little weighted portion at the top. This even has a groove in it, so maybe it was on some kind of rope and bow system to give them a little power to their sanding. But you can see how abrasive this is with all the quartzites and cutting materials. It's almost like earth-made sandpaper or abrasion tools. And we have this other one. Now this could have been for grinding down corn, for grinding down grain, or this could have been for grinding other stones on. You put a little wet sand on this, you start rubbing the sapphire and the points into shape. And the thing with the aluminum oxide is I brought some of the aluminum oxide points over here to show you how thin this stuff is naturally. You see how thin this stuff is uniformly because it grows in these sheets? They pretty much just had to sit and work this shape out by polishing and rubbing this shape out they want it to on abrasive material. This takes a lot of time, but once you get the profile, This is such a thin point, it does not need to be shafted or fluted. And a lot of times we flute to leave the sides powerful and to core out the middle. And this strengthens the whole point. There's no need to do that with this yellow and this clear sapphire. The stuff is so hard that a point like this, even though it's super thin, you can try everything you want, you're never going to break this. And once there's a point on it, it's not going to dull, it's not going to break when it hits bone. It's just, and this is a very Solutrean shape. I call it a rhombus or a kite-shaped point. We get a lot of them, very triangular points. And eventually these triangular points started to morph into stemmed points. You can start seeing it here with this one and this one. This is more of a quartzite or a schist type material, but you can see the diamond shape in both of these, but you can see how they're starting to curve away the bottom halves of that, starting to get into the stem, more of a stem design. These are so ancient that they're prior to arrowheads having nice stems on it like these ones down here do. And you'll find arrowheads like this not really in a creek. You'll find ones that have all that detail on it still, walking fields and old plow fields where the soil's slowly getting pulled back and just revealing intact layers of history. So they fell and sat like that and they never got disturbed again. And that's more paleo woodland. It's a couple thousand years back, not nearly as old as some of the stuff that's 20 to 25,000 years old. So you start seeing more of the Solutrean stuff up here, these early proto-stems. These are all made out of blue sapphire. These scrapers are very Solutrean. I brought a lot of those out to show. These are all scrapers that are extremely Solutrean in design, all made out of sapphire. These very boxy ones with the hook on the ends, you get a cutting tool plus a scraper. This actually has like silicated over top of the actual material underneath. We get all these effigies or these animal profiles made out of sapphire. We get these crazy pokers that look like animals. They're obviously worshipping the snapping turtle. The pennypack has a legendary animal known as the alligator snapping turtle. These aren't like normal snapping turtles. They're massive. Their heads are so big they can't go in their shells. That's why they're covered in spikes for protection. They could take your arm off with one bite. They can live up to 200-300 years old. And the pennypack is full of these things and has been for a long time, and they've been worshipped by the Native Americans with these turtle effigies. You get these little knives and scrapers all shaped like turtles. Turtle head shaft straightener made out of yellow sapphire, yellow and red, like a pad paradasha. We get these other effigies of turtles' mouths open. Another turtle, shaft straightener. I don't know what this shape is, but we find this shape in tool form all the time. I've seen other people with that same similar shape in their collection, so I'm not positive. I put this stuff aside. I think these were attempts at jewelry. I'm going to show you those real quick in a second under a light. That's tortoiseshell sapphire. This is a massive sapphire poker, so aerodynamically shaped for the hand right here. So it fits right in your hand. And then there's the poking end, and this is yellow sapphire. You can see the artifact patina all over it. This is a seal effigy, head, back fin, as it's diving through the water. And most of the animals are from side profile. The seal is important because the Solutreans were hunting them. So to have a bunch of different seal head type effigies. And then we come up here and we have one of the craziest, which is this woolly mammoth pendant in relief. So you have this sapphire gem bar growing out of the schist. They fractured the schist in half, exposed the gem bar, and then cut the gem bar back into the side profile of a mammoth's head. The trunk right there, you can see the two little holes for its nostrils. And then here's the trunk going back into the mouth. You can see its tongue. You see its eye right there, and its ear. And that's the side profile of a timber mammoth or a mammoth roaring. And if the people witnessed mammoths and were able to pick them accurately, on an effigy stone, then that means they must have encountered these things while they were alive, which was prior to the last ending of the last ice age, prior to 13,000 years. So they're also obviously venerating the horse. We have a yellow sapphire poker. This is for pressure flaking the edge of other stone tools. You would use like flint and this to push down on the thing that you want to flake. And this has a side profile of a horse. You see its mouth, its eye, its mane. You see this relief cut around where its neck comes down for the thumb to catch, so you have leverage. So we got the horse, the mammoth, turtles, all kinds of turtles. We get these side profiles of these weird Nephilims, the flat-headed or chinless people of the hills, the people that would take their children and eat them. These are the stories of the ancient natives about the giants. Perhaps this was an effigy depicting one of these flat-headed, conical-looking Neanderthal-type, Nephilim-type cannibals in the hills that their stories reflect to. And this is some kind of nickel and gold and silver alloy that was kind of, or amalgamation that was melted down. And then here for the ear, the eye, and the mouth, they used some kind of cinnabar ochre pigment that looks like it was enameled or baked into there. Some really, really old, original, smelting going on possibly, or at least heat treating and then accidentally cooking metals into that state. But these are all little side profiles. This is like a cave bear in white sapphire. You got the snout. It's like a hog-faced cave bear. That's what it looks like. Got this other one that's pretty crazy. You got a hand here throwing either a sword or it looks like the cross of Lorraine almost, like a double sided cross. I have to clean this up, but what I believe this is the side profile of a bear. So we're going to have the nose and the eye. But for the nose and for the eye, they have a spear in a hand, like the profile of it. I have to clean it up so you can see it better. But you can see the sword. See the hand right there, which would have been the nose. That has a lot of calcification built up. As a sapphire is so hard, if you shape it or if there's natural pits or inclusions in it, the water will run over it and it won't soften or cut the sapphire because it's too hard. But what'll happen is in all the little cracks and crevices of the stone, it'll fill up with calcium, which is naturally in the water, which over time forms a cement or concretion known as calcite, which gets down into all the details of the artifacts, and you gotta kind of Dremel and carefully clean them out so you can actually see what's going on. And I'm very, very careful to make sure I'm not encountering pareidolia, or when you see shapes and things that aren't really there, because our mind just wants to naturally make patterns out of things. So I'm very aware of that. So I'm very careful, and I examine everything 20 times before I decide whether it's artifactual, whether it's a geofact, just a stone that looks like an artifact. But when the things have pigment, and when the things are in repetition, and when they're heat treated, and when you've been doing this as long as I can, you can feel the mana, you feel the energy coming off of these things. You know when an area used to be inhabited by ancient people. You can just feel it. And at certain points, you can start feeling it. I have all kinds of videos, guys, about tips and tricks to finding this stuff. It doesn't take rocket science. Look for big white ghost trees, especially in the Northeast, around crossing points of creeks. I call these ghost trees, but of course they're sycamores. These grow back first when ancient trees were cleared from sites because they bolt and their pods float along the water and can pretty much grow in any type of soil. These giant white ghost trees were planted on purpose and grew accidentally at sites of ancient industry. So they're always great spots to check by. And you usually find the quarry sites near large collection of these giant white trees at crossing points, and you'll see that they're always venerated with these pairs of artifacts. Now, getting back to that, because we digressed, these matching pairs of artifacts, they have to have something to do with spirituality or belief, because this practice goes back to ancient man, not even in America, but ancient man in the UK. Artifactual sites, they find matching pairs deposited at natural springs and wells and natural crossing points. Now, these artifacts are usually made out of what we would say exotic materials. They're not really made for use. They're made elegantly and then deposited on purpose at these places. And how I find them intact is I go out after it rains, and these are meandering creeks, especially the pennypack. It means slow, dark, dead water that flows uphill. And how these creeks can flow uphill is they're naturally born out of the ground with a spring, and they flow along a fault. The Pennypack Creek, for instance, was still flowing under an ocean 250 million years ago. That's how old it is. Ancient. That's why there's all these fossils and stuff in the creek as well. So this ancient flowing natural body of water that has to wind itself, and you make these giant S's. And these S's help push the water uphill. They help push the water forward. And that's what the concept of a meandering stream is. Now, wherever these bends are, you can look on Google Earth, wherever the bends are in these creeks, you'll see massive, for lack of better terms, sandbars. These are massive deposits, gravel bars. And this is where you find a lot of this stuff. What happens when it pours and rains and you get a flash flood is there's too much water for the creek to contain, so it spills over. Theoretically, it's backing up. So in these areas that have these big S's, they become like little lakes during a flood, and a lake that is spinning like a whirlpool, like a washing machine. So all the stuff from upstream that's gotten pulled down, all the stuff from the land that's gotten pulled down, all the stuff that was underground that got washed up, all the stuff from the banks that got eroded away becomes exposed and ends up as your top layer once the flood settles, once the water level goes down. So these are found by these giant ghost trees or in root systems along the banks after flash floods have washed away the dirt in those root systems, exposing these caches that were left behind in pairs usually. It only happens after the rains, the only time you get those conditions. If not, they just get washed into the bank and they become part of the massive deposit, hoping that someone recognizes what they are at some point to try to answer the questions of this lost civilization. But these aren't geoglyphs. These are all actual artifacts. I went to school for identifying them. I have a background in that. They are not normal tools. There's some of these that are percussion in style, but most of these are formed using abrasion. And not only do we have the tools after they're made with the abrasion method, we actually have the abrasive tools that were used in the production of this process. We have all kinds of these abrasive hammerheads, massive hammerheads. They were doing a ton of natural quarrying for natural stone. There's another time period that's much more modern, and they were going after the same materials, so it gets very confusing. This is where the Mayan presence or Mayan theory comes in. We already found Mayan blue pottery in the area. We know they had vast trading networks, and we know that they were very good with stone and stonework, and we know that they were working precious gems like emeralds, sapphires, rubies. So there's another group that was exploiting these quarries much later after the Solutreans were, and they seem to be just kind of doing things like this, where they chip little uniform blocks of the actual gem out, gem bars or whatnot, and they were probably just taking these and shipping them or using them for trade, because you always just find them in this rough form, worked a bit but not worked down into what they ultimately were going to be. So these are like a preform, but this is not quartz. This is milk sapphire. It's aluminum oxide. Got a lot of it down here, all different types of aluminum oxides, different pad paradaceous stones, different blue sapphires, rough sapphires of different sizes. Yellow sapphire, you can just walk over this stuff a lot because it looks like a brick. It's hard to even tell that it's a sapphire. Very boxy. It's got that corundum shape. It's got that angle. Should have that flat angle on each side, but just didn't form with how it grew. These are all examples of different aluminum oxide or rubies or sapphires. It's a beautiful example of one there because you can see the gem band right before, This would be considered like a blue, rough blue into clear sapphire. But they were exploiting the massive amounts of this, and there's tons of it, like massive pieces of this blue gold sheen sapphire in its matrix form. Huge piece of ruby back there. So these ancient people were making all kinds of stuff out of gemstones, and they really seemed to know what they were doing with the material. Now, I want to show you something with the light real quick. I got a gem light over here. This stuff's kind of neat, this tortoise shell. This tortoise shell sapphire here, you can really see the matrices in it. I want to show you this tic-tac-toe pattern that I was telling you about. And you could really see it in this stone, that tic-tac-toe pattern running through the whole rock. So, and then you get this bipyramidic, you see you get this triangle right here coming out of the formation, all these little lines. This is tortoise shell yellow sapphire. We get it up to the gem light. It's pretty serious, and how you can really start to see all the tic-tac-toe and the different, score marks that the sapphire is naturally creating as it's grown in these sheets. So yeah, I don't want to look into that light because you can't see. We have the same stuff right here though. This yellow sapphire, it's really not opaque. It's actually clear once it gets polished. Even a big chunk like this, you can see right into the rock itself. It's not exactly opaque. It's clear once it starts getting polished. Stuff's really, really hard. But I have a bunch of other videos on how to test that stuff. But anyways, I really wanted to get into talking about these spiritual practices of leaving these matching artifact pairs, and we find it all over ancient Europe, all the way up to the Mesolithic period. Maybe this is a precursor to the Christian practice of baptism. Maybe the Christians borrowed this idea from a much more ancient pagan idea, which came from a much more ancient animalist idea, or an idea from our original spiritual upbringings that we don't really have much sense of. Could they have been brought to points where two different clans or two different tribes boundaries meet? And could one group bring the one artifact and another bring a matching artifact in some kind of marriage ceremony, and then they're deposited as a sign of unionship between two groups? Could they have been left because they wanted to have a good journey and they felt like caching these artifacts at the point that they headed out on would protect the area when they weren't there, or protect them in their journey? Was it something done before war? Did they kill somebody with these and then they were ritually offered? Were they offered before someone went to war for protection? Were they offered at quarry sites and crossing sites because they were pulling rock out of the ground and a rock was a god to them, literally worshipped as a god, and they're giving back to the place where they're pulling the material from? These are all questions. They all could be right. They all could be wrong. You're just never going to know. And that's the pain when you're talking about ancient beliefs when you don't have any written context to go by. They're all just speculation based on the little bit of evidence you can dig and find. Again, a really cool ancient either surgery, sewing, or tattoo kit of some sort. All very Solutrean in style, all from the Neshaminy. The Neshaminy is another Native American place name, another creek with a Native American place name. And what that means is Twin Creeks, or the creek with a mirror, because the Neshaminy splits all the time, and it's like two creeks are parallel running with each other with land in between. The little Neshaminy splits off of the large Neshaminy and runs parallel with it for miles and miles and miles. But all of these basalt-like tools made from this volcanic material come from the Neshaminy. The whole creek is filled with this material. It's not like the Pennypack where you get all this different geology. You mainly just have basalt and mudstone in the bottom of that creek because it's on the Atlantic plate. You're on a plate that's made of basalt, so that's what you get. And they're heat treating these as well. That's why they're so chimey. I mean, these little stylus, I feel like I can write with these still today. Very, very cool. Well, it's very baffling about this is at the site where I found all this stuff in the Neshaminy, I have this piece, but it's away. It's very similar to this one. I found a huge chunk of blue sapphire, very similar to this one, at this site in the Neshaminy. And the Neshaminy doesn't have the geology for sapphire. So we know that tons of people were mining and collecting it in the Wissahickon Neshaminy. It was almost like it was brought as a trade or offering, or at the very least shows that these people were migrating in between all three stream systems at one point. Because material from one completely opposite site is being transported to another and left. Here's some of those points that I was explaining before. I showed you the kite-shaped one, but here's some other very triangular type points, but all made out of that sapphire. That's stuff that you don't have to worry about fluting, because you can't break this stuff. Even when it's that thin, you can't break it. Hit it with hammers again and again, it won't break. It's a good way of knowing that you have a sapphire, not quartz, honestly. The clear and yellow stuff really does a job at looking like quartz, so you have to be careful with it. Anyways, again, guys, please subscribe. I apologize for my terrible Blair Witchy filming. Hopefully that gets better in the future when I get some better equipment as the channel grows. Please watch more for the content, more for the audio, more for the educational stuff. Also, if you guys have any similar finds or want to chime in on possible answers or solutions to this spiritual side of things, which we'll never know, they're all just speculations, feel free to post and to comment. And as always, stay happy, guys. And if you're lost, stay happy. You will find your way. And sometimes you got to get lost to find the true way. So anyways, please subscribe if you haven't. Check out the Happy Lost Souls store. I'll put a link down in the description. Remember, any purchase you make on there, percentage is going to go to help clean the water of this world up. And anyways, I love you guys. Tell me what you all think. And peace out.